Good morning, listeners, and welcome to another episode of Universal Energies. My guest today is the wonderful Marcus Day, and thank you very much for agreeing to come.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks, Robert. Thanks for inviting me.
You're welcome. Now, this programme is, as you know, listeners, this is a programme for all faiths, denominations, and beliefs. So we can sit down together, all of us eventually, in a discussion situation and talk about how we feel, how energies affect us in our everyday lives. So, as we've got Marcus today, who is a medium, we're going to start off by saying, let's find out, Marcus, when you first started, how long you've been doing it, and what resonates with you.
Right, okay, so yes, I am a spiritualist medium, which means I get the pleasure of going out on platform, whether it be in spiritualist churches, centres, halls, and giving demonstrations of communication between this world and the people who took that journey we call death, people who live in the spirit world. So for me, that is a medium, giving evidence of life after life. And I do a lot of one-to-one private readings as well. But Robert, it is something that I never expected I'd be sat here talking to you about today. I mean, I grew up in Suffolk, and as a young lad I was just more interested in the things that a young man would be into. I was going fishing and wanted to go and play football and go to the boxing gym, and as I grew up I wanted to get a job and earn money and meet girls and go to discos and get drunk and all those things, and looking to work in a spiritual manner was not something that I would have ever gone looking for. But having said that, I can remember very young thinking to myself, because we had a church quite near where I grew up in Great Finborough, not far from Stowmarket, little village there, and I remember thinking people would go to the church because as kids we'd get dragged along at Harvest Festival and things like that. I didn't mind, but I remember distinctly thinking at quite a young age, even when I was probably about 7 or 8, I remember thinking religion is for people who have a weakness and that they need something to hang on to believe in, to make them feel whole. And it's quite a profound thought for a very young child, but I remember that distinctly. But where I grew up, we used to have a lot of phenomena in the house, and what I mean by that is everybody who visited the house heard footsteps in the night. It was an old medieval farmhouse, and my stepdad, I'd tell you how far we're going back, he rented a VHS video from the library on medieval buildings. I
wouldn't remember that, my dad would tell me.
Yeah, quite. So but he'd rented this VHS on medieval buildings, and whenever he put it on to play it, we could hear people literally dancing in the loft. Now, what it was, why it was, I've no idea, because I don't get that kind of thing happen to me very much now, but what it did for me, amongst other things, and people saw people in the house, and there was memories of me speaking to a man in a dress and with a hat on and stuff, and I told my parents, and they're thinking, crikey, we're going to move into a hotel. But there was lots of experiences that everyone had in that house, and what it did for me is it led me to grow up not knowing any different, and knowing that without question, because I'd experienced it firsthand so many times myself, from a small boy up to a teenager, that there was something beyond this world, something behind the scenes, something all-knowing, something powerful, something of an intelligent nature. Now what it was I didn't know, but I knew that there was something, and that possibly there was a life outside of what we experience as the physical world. Yeah. So I didn't grow up religious, but I grew up with a sense of belief and having an open mind, shall we say.
I do understand that, and I can relate to what you're saying.
Right.
Although my background would be quite religious, confirmed and Christian Church of E and things like that. But having said that, then I've been doing things from a young age, and I knew everything. But we're living in a different world now, and a different time. You with your mediumship and me with my mediumship, going down the same path, maybe in different routes sometimes. But having said that, there's more out there today.
Absolutely.
And because there's more out there, people want to know.
When you say more out there, you mean more mediumship and more spiritual paths?
More discussion on spiritual paths.
Oh yeah, okay.
And whether it's through a medium of newspapers or televisions or films or discussions, whatever it happens to be, it opens people's minds an awful lot more.
Absolutely.
What do you think about the situation of when people say they are open? How would you express that as an openship?
As an openship, well, that's a good question. Well, if I understand what you're saying, when people are open to the idea of mediumship and spirituality, or you mean they're open to?
They're open to everything.
Do you know, I don't always meet many people that are open to everything. I meet a lot of skeptics, but I think that if I go back to what you said before we got to there, I mean, for me, what happened was, I'm going to reel back just a little bit, if you don't mind.
No.
What manifested out of my understanding as a young child is later on, in my mid-20s and then early 30s, I started to experience more and more where I would see people that had passed the day before. I would know things that had happened before that were going to happen before they happened. I wasn't actually too happy about it, if I'm honest, because I didn't like the feeling of knowing things before they happened, because I couldn't always do anything about it. I would see things that were going to be in the newspaper. And then I would start seeing beautiful lights just emanating from people's bodies, heads, the auric field, and I was thinking, how can no one else in the room see this? Because it's so objective. As clear as we look at this tree here, you know, I could see these things. And so I eventually started working with it, and what I became to understand, and I'm mentioning this because we'll get around to the answer to your question, what I came to understand is that mediumship is such a natural thing, and it's a byproduct of us becoming attuned to our own spirit, because if we're going to tune to our own spirit and not focus on the physical world for a bit, then all of a sudden we start to feel, sense and hear things that our spirit can perceive, and that's where mediumship lies. And for me, that's how I feel it works. So growing up with the knowledge and awareness, it was natural to me, obviously, that I could perceive these things, and then through practice it got stronger and stronger, so I could zone my mind into where I receive that. Now, I think that there are people going through life, going back to your question, that they've been very lucky, they haven't suffered. They haven't perhaps lost their home or their job, or been seriously ill, or bereaved by losing a friend or loved one. And there are a few people who haven't yet been through that, and they're the ones who are quite, well, you know, I'm not really interested, and they're not very open, because they've not needed it. They haven't needed some kind of soul nourishment, some philosophy, whether it comes from Buddhism or the local church, or someone with a listening ear, or a counsellor, or a spiritualist, or a medium, someone that can help their spiritual side in that moment of suffering. And sometimes that suffering that we talked about, any one of those things, can be a gateway to finding our own spirit, because it's not until people go through a tremendous difficulty that sometimes our own spirit is all that's left.
I agree. It does open your mind an awful lot. I'm not saying that you have to suffer to get to a situation, but having said that, then what I was trying to get to more was, if people are open, then perhaps they need to experience or go down different roads of learning to find out what resonates with them first.
Oh, absolutely.
The word open is bounded about an awful lot today, and it sort of means, it's almost like this spirituality is bounded about and still got the stigma of new age-ness on it, if you like.
Totally. I mean, you say about people who are being open, and people looking at different things to help them. I think we've come into an age of, obviously, communication, where people will not just look at books, or they hear what they're told at school or by their friends and relatives, but obviously what they find online, what they find on television, what they hear on the radio. And if we look at modern spiritualism, if we look at in the 1800s, when the Fox sisters appeared, and we had the Hydesville rappings, and these two young sisters, Margarita and Catherine, it showed that when they were around, there would be these knocks, and they communicated with that, with the spirit of a man who'd passed over, and they developed a code, so they spelt out names and words.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And he explained where he was, how he died, where he was buried, etc., etc. And it proved at that time that mediumship could be facilitated through people. So mediumship became a word, became a thing. And because it happened at the time when the National Rail was happening in America, because this was in the States,
That's right.
obviously you know, and also happened when the newspapers were around. All of a sudden, people over the country started hearing about this phenomenon, and people coming far and wide to investigate it, and people started making development circles and having spiritualist meetings. Of course, there was no television then, and within a short period of time, there was nearly 50 million people following spiritualism in America. Then, of course, the same thing that caused spiritualism to spread far and wide also caused other things to spread far and wide. So people became more interested, and I think, you know, they came in. People get drawn into different things.
Definitely.
I meet people who spiritualism and mediumship, the idea of communication between two worlds, doesn't sit well right for them, and that's fine. But they might go to a Buddhist temple and have a meditation course because they just heard it would relax them. And after 8 weeks of it, think, well, actually, do you know what? I've actually gained a lot from this. I've shed a lot of anger. I feel a lot more relaxed. I'm sleeping better. I feel less stressed at work. And they start reading the philosophy of Buddhism. And so, you know, because they got drawn into that, it's right for them.
Absolutely.
And by the same token, somebody might get drawn into a spiritualist church because they've lost somebody, or they're intrigued with their own experiences, and they get interested in that. So I think that it's a wonderful thing. There's no one religion, there's no one philosophy, because I believe whether it's numerology, whether it's dowsing with crystals, whether it's healing, ultimately all paths lead back to one thing, and that's to God, and that's to our spirit. It doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah, I do think you've hit the nail on the head with what you're saying. It's man-made, whatever we do, whatever we think along there, putting the name on it. We have put the name on God, Muhammad, Buddha, whatever it happens to be. But having said it's man-made, and if we just localise it within ourselves and know that we are spirit, we came down from spirit, and it doesn't matter if you have a belief or not, you will go back to spirit, no matter what.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no avoiding it, is there?
No. And let's face it, then until someone materialises in front of us and says this is how it is in spirit, we have other people's, like you have mine and I have yours, interpretation of what those realms are.
Absolutely.
What we're trying to get over is the energies that are produced when we are giving either demonstrations, workshops, readings, how we are feeling. And those energies are combined whether we are believing in a spirit, a God, other beliefs or not. We have put a label on them rather than just being content to say they are energies, and we are a universal collective force, as the natives would say in Makitu Awishin. We are all as one, we are all related. So rather than go down those roads, we are trying to explore for the listeners here different aspects of, and maybe they can take a little pip out of this cherry and a little pip out of that one, and it'll spark something, and off they go. So how long have you been doing this on the circuit, shall we say?
I started giving readings probably 11, 12 years ago. I had no training at all. I didn't even know how to do it. The first time I sat with somebody, give them a reading, we both kept laughing. I said, you know, that I've experienced some stuff, I said. I didn't go into it too much because I felt a bit tentative about telling people. And because the young lady sat in front of me, she said, you know, I fancy going to a psychic and get a reading. I said, well, funny thing is, I get some psychic experiences. I wonder if I could do it for you. She said, well, come on, let's give it a go. So we arranged a time to meet. We sat down together. I hadn't got a clue what to do. And in the end, I said, look, I remember once seeing somebody put some cards out. So we got some playing cards and we put the cards out and I started looking at them. And all of a sudden, my psychic started working. I started seeing pictures and images. And throughout the reading, I gave her information about a grandfather who worked and had fruit stalls on the East End of London. She didn't know about this, and I said, this is on your dad's side. And I got the name of Andy, which is her dad's name. And I gave some other information, and she went and rung her dad, and he said, Yeah, your grandfather, his name was, whatever it was, and he did have fruit stalls on the east end of London. Now, I walked around for a few days, absolutely mind blown. Wow, I can see into another world. I can feel, hear and sense those who now live in the spirit. And I continue to have lots and lots and lots of experiences, whether it be, I would see pictures appearing on the wall when I was getting into bed, and it would be like an x-ray of somebody, and I would know who that person was, and I could see they had a problem with their back on the wall. It was just like someone projected it. It was incredible. And I'd ring that person and say, right, you've got a problem with your back and you've got a sore throat, and they're like, how the heck did you know that? Well, I didn't say I got a projection of them on the wall, but I just said, oh, I had a funny dream or whatever. And so these things kept happening, and it wasn't until I started using, expressing the energy and power that I had to do this, that whole phenomena started settling down. It's a bit like having a young child or dog that's got too much energy, and you're not taking it out for a walk, or taking it down the
good analogy.
Down to the playgrounds, and so it runs wild. And that's what was happening to me. I was having out of body experiences, having lucid dreams. I was, the bed was moving in the night. There was a lot. It's almost as though the energy needed to do something, and the spirit also constantly reminding me, we're here, we're here, we're here. And in the end, once I kind of accepted that I have got an ability that I need to develop, because a lot of people call it a gift, don't they?
They do. That was going to be our next. Carry on. That was going to be our next question.
There you go. I must have read your mind. But the thing is, we can be gifted in childcare. We can be gifted in art, football, maths, singing. Doesn't matter. Whatever those things are, you've still got to practice and develop them. You don't say, right, I'll tell you what, I'm going to play for England next week. I think I'll be pretty good at football.
I know.
So, and the mediumship is the same. You might be, I think, gifted within that area. There might be something within you which is much more easily able to attune your mind into that space that is required, but then you have to develop it. Now, I'm just going to skip over something here, because...
Do skip.
Well, as we sat down and before you started interviewing me, you started talking about, we were just chatting, weren't we, and you did actually say to me, how do interest in other religions or faiths or beliefs help or assist our mediumship? And for me personally, I think one of the biggest things is, whether we go into Buddhism, whether we go to a church, whether we call it nothing, whether we sit in a forest and meditate, ultimately what we're looking for is a sense of peace and joy, isn't it?
It is. That's the bottom line. Yeah.
We're looking to empty ourselves and detach ourselves from the constant problems and pains and suffering of life. Now, in a nutshell, what I believe is that underneath all that rubbish, our spirit starts to emerge. When we're laughing, that's why the Buddha laughs, so the spirit's emerging. There was actually a Buddhist who apparently used to go to market centres and just laugh and laugh and laugh, and people used to gather around and start laughing as well, because he was laughing, just trying to show that once we realise how ridiculous life is and what we get caught up in, underneath there's great joy. And so the point I'm getting at is, whichever path you go down, once your spirit starts to emerge, and what I mean by that is you start feeling that sense of stillness and joy that resides within all of us and is ultimately all of us, then I think the byproduct of becoming in tune with our own spirituality is starting to feel and sense the energy of other people, feel and sense the energy of a tree, probably not this one because it's plastic, start to know and feel the energy and emotion of an animal, and also comes with that psychic experiences and mediumship. The Buddhists call them, and the yogi monks, you might know this, call them siddhis.
Yeah, that's right.
And they meditate and meditate and meditate to develop a sense of self-realisation of their own spirit and God. And rather than just walk around saying, oh, so I'm very spiritual, I'm probably not in that voice, but they actually have these things they call siddhis, S-I-D-A-H-S, I believe it was the English translation of it. But what it means is that the lower level siddhis and the basic ones are clairvoyance, being able to see, clairaudience, be able to hear the spirit, and hear, words beyond this world, and then healing and all this kind of stuff. And so it proves to them that they are developing spiritually. Now they might not use them, and they're not looking to gain them, but they're using them as gauges of development. So anyway, my stepbrother's actually a Buddhist, and when he listened to me and talked to me about what I do and what he does, he said to me, well, I think the Buddhists would just call those siddhis. You've gained, and this is why, as a medium, personally, I'm rattling on here. I apologise.
No, you're not.
I will literally, for my development, because a lot of people go to development circles. I haven't been very lucky with those. I've been to a couple which helped me at the time, but I never really found circles were the right thing for me. They were either the wrong night, or they were too full, or people didn't like me, or whatever. So all I did was just literally sit in the power of spirit and find my stillness, focus on my breath, try and let go of everyday life, let go of body awareness, and just sit within that space and see where it would take me, to the point where I was completely in bliss of letting go of all material things and just sitting there in this place of stillness, and there the spirit would gather and meet me. And I realised that what I was doing was letting go of the material to focus on the spirit, and that's where my mediumship was developing. And I found next time I gave a reading, next time I gave a mediumistic demonstration in a church or hall, that my closeness to spirit had gathered momentum. So I believe that there was a great priest called Padre Pio, and I wish I could tell you the year that he was around, but he was the Benedictine monk, Italian monk, and all he did was cared about was God, and he prayed and prayed and prayed. So all he did was focus on God, and he prayed to God, let me help you, let me be a servant of your power. And he developed the ability to bilocate. He was seen giving sermons at different places. He famously, and this isn't even that long ago, there's whole books about him, he famously used to sometimes close his eyes, and he'd been seen floating down the corridor, down the centre of the church in front of his congregation. People would come to him from all over Europe and Pan-Asia, and he would speak to people in Russian and Portuguese. He knew none of these languages, yet the spirit had manifested and he could speak in different tongues. He bled with the stigmata, and when they tested him, it was real blood. They couldn't find any scars, and it would bleed again, and it smelt of rose petals. And then here's a man that all he wanted to do was just serve God, but he would be able to heal people. And he's revered as a saint now, Padre Pio. But here's a man that manifested the gifts of the spirit. And I think that a lot of people who go looking to develop mediumship or psychic abilities, which is great, which is fantastic, I think what we really should do is be trying to get in touch with our own spirit first.
I agree.
And if we do that, all those things start to manifest in a joyous way, and also we then have the tools, the spiritual tools, the right intelligence and the right motivation behind it to use it, rather than just using it.
I do think that not only do you talk a lot of sense, but you resonate
Talk
with
a
me.
lot.
No, you resonate an awful lot with me. And my philosophy is, it doesn't matter what name you put on a person.
No.
Unfortunately, the philosophy is lost, because we're now in a situation whereby we have rules and regulations that govern what we believe in.
Right, yeah.
And unfortunately, you mentioned development circles, which I used to do years ago, but my development circles were giving people tools of all aspects of the spirit.
Right.
Whether it was through mediumship, the three senses that go with it, or whether it was for energies in dowsing or hypnotherapy or those kind of things around there, and talking about the aura around the people, also talking about other beliefs going back to maybe the Knights of the Templars, and going right back to the Egyptians, and looking at the pyramid texts and finding out that certain things that are said on there that can be related to the book that we now look at and we call the Bible, and we see in there. And the greatest thing in the world, that only the other day I was talking to a vicar, who's a lovely man, I get on with him very well, and I knew the Bible because I used to be top of the class of Bible at school, and I was all sort of done these sort of things, and yes, there's Sunday schools and all that you're talking about, and confirmed and christened. But having said that, I said, do you believe in this, that and something? He said, well, I think you take it a bit literally. And I thought to myself, well, yes, that is life in a nutshell for spirituality that you call it, or the God you call it, or the Buddhist you call it, or as you read in the the Hindu words or whatever it is. You're seeing what you want to see inside them, because it doesn't resonate with you. Yet you still say that come into my house because it's God's house. But yet you don't go by what you're preaching really. And he said, well actually, I suppose when you look at it like that, I don't. Because I'm supposed to look at the Bible and take it as gospel.
Right. Take
it as written. He said, but you're looking at it from a point where it's a man-written book, and it's over the interpretations of the people who wrote or maybe heard through hearsay to put in there. So he said, I'm looking at things in a different aspect completely now. Although my beliefs don't change, because whether I believe in the Bible and take it literally or not, my beliefs in a spirit. And he said, I'm now going to change my way of preaching. He said, I'm going to talk about the Spirit. Whether my parishioners put the name of God on it or not is entirely up to them. But I'm going to talk about the Spirit.
That's fantastic.
And at the end of the day, then that was a great lesson for me, because I work with somebody who I just listen to, open my mouth and the words come out. Sometimes I've been accused of opening my mouth for the brains in gear, like a lot of us have been. But I don't really worry too much about that, because if you're getting a debate and a discussion like we are here going, that all it really matters, because there are people that are listening today who have no idea of what path they're going to, what direction they're on, or where they have come from in the first place.
Gordon Higginson, one of the most fantastic mediums that ever lived, he passed in, I think it was 1992, but he famously said, I say famously, if you've read his books or in spiritual circles that know about him, he said, and this is not verbatim, but the words along the lines of, whatever I hold true and believe today, I may well change my mind tomorrow. And I think that's absolutely right. We have to keep an open mind to develop an understanding of what's right for us. Now, your priest friend, he may have been very indoctrinated, and I mean this in the best possible way, and fervently believed the word of that Bible for many years, but now he's decided the truth is subjective, isn't it? So he's developing his own sense of understanding from what that book means, and that's true for everybody. If we were to read, if we were to sit here now and read the Bible today with the people that we are now, we would find it interesting, inspiring, maybe some of it's boring, maybe some of it sound rubbish, but we might then, if we read it in 10 years' time, find something completely different in that. And this is why we are here experiencing in this world, and we're developing a sense of understanding. For me, whatever path we go down, whatever we find, ultimately it's got to be freeing, healing, uplifting, and it's got to be soul nourishing, because once we leave this world, we no longer have, the only thing we have, from what I understand, the only thing we have left is our spirit. I say the only thing, that's not the only thing, it's a wonderful thing. But whatever experiences we've gained in this life, we're going to take with us.
Yeah, we are.
And we might as well get in touch with our spirit now, and what we might feel as our God now, because we're going to create some kind of life after this for ourselves with the emotions and understanding. And if we leave this world very attached to many problems, we have to sort of work on them when we get over there. What I'm trying to say is, I believe that whatever path we go down, wherever we find spirituality, wherever we find a connection to our own soul, whether it's being with a child and listening to it laugh, whether we walk in nature, whether we sit in a Tibetan mountain and meditate, whether we go to a spiritualist church or circle, whether we read the Bible, ultimately that sense of spirituality that is helping you create a balance between materialism and materiality.
Yeah.
But between the woes of the world.
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody needs something.
Exactly.
No matter what.
Whatever's
And
right for
the time
them.
is getting on.
Yes.
And, I enjoy talking to you. I just want to explain a little of how we are evolving within this Universal Energies program, and also the spiritual centre we've got. They are both non-denominational. So I will have people, for argument's sake, of different religions, and that includes Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormons and that kind of thing, talking. I will have people talking on numerology and all the other ologies that go along with it as to this time on Friday, which I've already said to you that we're going to, as it's a charity-based thing, we're giving 2 cheques of £600 each to one to Multiple Sclerosis Society locally, and the other one to the Stone Lodge Special Needs School for the sensory department.
Fantastic.
And when you think that the members of the public only pay £2 to get in,
Excellent.
and they can have a cup of coffee for 50p.
Yeah, and a wonderful evening.
And a wonderful evening, and they can have readings as well, and your good self has arranged, you haven't changed your mind, I hope?
Oh no, not yet.
That you come down sometime in the future.
I would love to.
And we'll have an evening that's really good. We'll make a fuss of you, we might even give you a currant bun, you never know.
Oh, excellent.
You never know. But
so I'll come do a demonstration of mediumship.
Yeah. Or you can do anything else you want to do. If you've got something that you talk on proficiently.
Well, they won't want to hear me dance or sing, or see me dance or sing, so I'll come and do mediumship.
We have a very cosmopolitan group that comes. No, I understand. But having said that, then my understanding of setting up this group is so everybody can, and I'll get to the question in a minute, everybody can sit down and talk and resonate their own ideas between themselves with great respect for each and every one others.
Excellent.
Now what I was going to say is, and it's gone completely out of my mind just to start with, is that let's just carry on to that elk for a minute. Just that when you first started doing your mediumship, did you find that you had to conform to something? You had to, like when I first started, the only outlet was spiritual churches. There's nowhere else.
Yeah.
Development circles were not too prominent. You might get the odd one now and then, but it wasn't called a development circle. What it was called is that if you want to understand how to be a medium, you can come along to this session.
Yeah.
And it generally lasted for 2 or 3 sessions, and then it was a case of that you standing up in front of someone after the second session and saying this, that and something else. And so it didn't resonate with me right from the beginning. But the control aspect of a circle, and getting back to you sitting in the wild with nature and just being, is not available when you get to a development circle, because you all have to go down certain roads and pick up certain things.
I think, I hear what you're saying, and I think certainly if I understand the question in my own mind, I think development circles is a misleading title for it, because I don't think we develop in them. I think we practice with each other on what we've learned, certain techniques. We might sit in front of each other and try and do psychometry. I might hold this pen and see what kind of vibration I get from it, and discover something of the journey of on, and then I find it belongs to Charlie in the office.
Yeah, I know.
So the point is, I don't think that we actually develop in them. I think we develop outside the circle in our own time with spirit. But I do agree that we've got to be careful of not being controlled. And not being told that you must do it like this or must do it like that. We've got our own free thinking, and ultimately our own spirit will guide us for what is true, I believe. But having said that, I do believe that a good circle leader or course organiser, or anyone who's taking on that sort of guiding tutor role, should have some guidelines and boundaries that create some balance and normality and control within that group. Because,
I agree.
Because one, you might get somebody who's got mental health problems, or somebody who's very vulnerable, or somebody who's been very disruptive to other people in the group, or someone whose beliefs might be I'm going to get into a very in-depth and long conversation if I'm not careful here. That there might be people who are sort of very obsessed with negative energies or that kind of thing.
I know.
And I think there has to be guidelines that create some kind of reality that keeps it down to earth, for the want of expression.
That's good. That's good way.
Keeps it true.
Yeah, good way of expressing it. The only doubt I have on a circle at all is where ego takes over.
Oh, crikey, yeah.
Spirit goes out of the window.
Yeah.
I choose my words very carefully. I nearly said something else then. But yes, they do. And unfortunately, I work with love and laughter. Laughter is the thing, and all my circles are done with love and laughter.
Yeah.
And they're not development circles, because I don't think, as you rightly say, people don't develop. They want to know and experience the different aspects of what they can develop.
Absolutely.
They don't develop, but unfortunately, today we're in a situation whereby the older mediums, and I'll put myself in that sort of category now, are long fading. And the young guys like yourself that are coming up and gone through that stage, and the younger guys that are coming behind you have an anticipation to carry on, whether it be a church or it be a group, rather than be individualised with themselves and just go their own pathways. And I don't find that very encouraging at times, and probably that's why I've fallen out with a lot of people over that situation, because as my friend says, we do sort of speak out as we are. And I'm sure, listening to you, that's why I resonate with what you have just said. And yes, the time is getting on, and I'm going to get shot shortly, but we are going over just a little. But before we go, I must say that it has been a pleasure talking with you.
Very same. It's been great being here. I've enjoyed it. It's been a great discussion. I'm sure we could carry on all day.
I have followed your development, which is on.
It wasn't in a circle.
No,
I'm joking.
And the media. I've had because that's what I do. I mean, over the years, then we all know lots of people, and don't want to name drop and all that sort of thing. But over the years, a lot of people I have worked with and I've been with, and I've seen a lot of up and coming people really go completely berserk now. And they're doing all kinds of things, but it's lovely. All I will say, and I don't know if you agree with me or not, is that keep yourself and your spirit intact.
Keep it true.
And keep it into a situation that helps you in your everyday life. I know you have a busy life. I have a busy life. I've always done that, and so it's helped me out for lots and lots of things. And I'm not just talking about when I was ill and that sort of thing. I mean, I've done things like, balcony hopping at 50 years old at Magaluf, and falling in absolutely pie-eyed in a swimming pool full of sangria and being pulled out and all that. But having said that,
there's a swimming pool full of sangria.
Yeah.
Let's go there.
But having said that, I have always known that within inside myself, the same as you, I'm sure, there is that little voice that we call spirit there, that has guided, helped us, steered us, nurtured us along our path. And with that, I'm going to say thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you for having me here. It's been a great pleasure.
I'll just ask you one more thing, and
Please
that is, when we have the discussion, with other denominations, would you please take part?
Of course.
Thank you very much.
I would love to.
And thank you, listeners, and we'll see you again next time.